Hello friends, we are studying about the world climatic zones, and in the last class we studied starting from the equator, 10 degree north and 10 degrees south. The region lies is known as the equatorial climate, and what it means is because this area actually receives the maximum insolation from the sun, so obviously it is going to be a hot region. And what this hot region, if the area is close to the ocean, it is going to bring a lot of rainfall. So the equatorial region we used to identify with rainfall throughout the year without any dry season, and the less extremes between the summers and the winters. So we are going to have an equitable climate, whether it's going to be summer or winter, because of the marine influence there in the equatorial region. Another thing which we have to remember for the equatorial region is because of the continuous good rainfall throughout the year, we used to find evergreen rainforest. And about evergreen rainforest, it is required to understand that the soil there is not actually very rich in nutrients if you're going to remove the forest and if you start doing agriculture there because of the continuous downpour of the rain. So this particular question has been asked in IAS about the soil fertility of the equatorial rainforest. After that, 10 degree north and 10 degree south, then we move further to the 10 degree north to 30 degree north and south, and that region we call as the tropical region. In that tropical region, we started with the monsoon lands where we see the complete reversal of winds with the change in seasons, like our India. So in the monsoonal lands, we are going to have a distinct dry season and a distinct wet season, and we get rainfall in summers, like most of the places in the earth where we get maximum rainfall in the summers, because that is the time of low pressure and which actually produces the conventional rainfall. Monsoonal climates, then we moved us to the savanna or the Sudan climate, which actually develops best in the African region of Sudan, and which is also known as the tropical grasslands. Though they are not particularly exactly grasslands, but those are the grasses along with the trees, along with the short trees and not the bigger trees. Now it is quite obvious, as we are going to move from the tropical monsoons to the savanna or to the Sudan or savanna is going to be more hotter, a bit hotter and less precipitation. So how we are going to identify Sudan or the savanna climate? It is through a distant dry period. That is, the winters are going to be dry, and summers we are going to get rainfall which is going to be the less than the monsoonal rains. And this is the land of wildlife in Africa, the savanna region. And from savanna region, then we move to the tropical deserts, tropical hot deserts, which we saw they lie on the western part of the continents, and we saw the reason for that also. After that, we discussed in brief about the temperate deserts also, which are deserts because of their interior location in the continents. Now we are going to move ahead from 30° to 45 degrees latitude, right? And one thing which we have to keep in mind always is, as we are moving up in the latitude, right, from the equator to the north pole and the south pole, we are going to experience the milder temperatures, right? In the equator we are going to have the extreme summers, but as we move up from the equator, we are going to have milder temperature. So now between 30° to 45°, and then again for the 45° to the 65°, we are going to study the warm temperate region, and then it will be the cool temperate region, and we are going to approach this with the western margin, the central of the continent, and then the eastern margin of the continent, right? So now this 30° to 45° warm temperate region, we are going to call it as a warm temperate region, and first thing we'll focus about is the western margin of the continents, and then the interior of the continent, and then after that it would be the eastern part of the continent. Similarly, it will be for the 45° to 60° latitude, it will be a cool temperate region. Obviously, it is going to be cool as we are moving up from the equator. And same way, there also we will study the western margin of the continents, then again the interior, and then the eastern part of the continent, and then finally it will be the tundra region or the polar regions, the very cold regions. So the first region, which is the western margin, we are starting with the western part of the continent. Please remember this, and after that it will be the interior of the or the central of the continent in this latitude, and then it would be the eastern part of the continent. So the first is the western margin of the continent, which is also known as the Mediterranean climate, Mediterranean form of climate, because this type of climate actually forms best around the Mediterranean Sea. Now this is a very important climate because this climate actually possesses some very distinguished qualities which we don't find anywhere else in the world. But first, let's mark these Mediterranean regions on this world map. Now, as we have said, it develops best around the equatorial regions. So, it develops best around the Mediterranean Sea. So, this is the Mediterranean Sea. Now, if I mark here, so this complete region, this is Italy, this is Portugal, France, this is the African region. So this complete region around the Mediterranean Sea, this is the Mediterranean Sea. This experience the Mediterranean climate. Now in America we find California. Please remember these places, particularly with the important climatic regions like what I'm telling now, the Mediterranean climate. It's important for UPSC, so we need to remember the places for that as well. Now this is in South America. We get the central Chile part. Central Chile. In Africa, it is going to be the southwestern tip, and which is also the Cape Town. And then in Australia, it is again the western tip and the southern tip. So these regions, they have they experience almost same type of Mediterranean climate. And let us see now what is so important about this climate region and why it is so important in UPSC, and how we are going to catch the questions related with the Mediterranean. Now the point number one here is the dry and warm summers. Now, if you can find out, if you can note here, in summers we are saying it is dry and warm, because in most places of the world we find rainfall happening in the summers, right? Winters are normally dry, and summer, because it's a time of low pressure of intense heating, so of the summer season, after the summer season we experience rainfall in most parts of the world. But these parts they have dry summer, and let us see what is the reason for that. And if you remember, when we studied the global circulation of air, so if this is the equator, this is the Tropic of Cancer, this is the Tropic of Capricorn. So between these 0 degree to 30 degree approximately, if you say, so this is the belt of trade winds, and after that we get westerlies. And this 30 degrees, it is subtropical high pressure belt, and the 60 degrees we say it is subpolar low pressure belt, right? So here if you see, this is 60 degrees and subpolar low pressure belt. Now when sun is directly overhead the Tropic of Cancer, it is going to shift the entire wind belt. And if you see the location here of these Mediterranean regions, now when the wind belt is going to shift, the westerlies are going to shift in this direction, and so that is how the shift in the westerly wind belt, there is going to be no rain in this region because the westerlies are not able to bring moisture to these regions, right? And the second winds which are flowing from this are the trade winds, which are again the offshore trade winds. So that is actually the reason why these Mediterranean regions are not getting rainfall in the summer. So shift of the westerly winds and the offshore trade winds because of their location around in this area. The second is now is the winter rainfall. Now the question comes how they are getting rain in winters then. Now what is happening is now when the sun is over the Tropic of Capricorn, the westerlies they are going to shift southward, and now when they are going to shift southward, they are definitely going to bring rain to these regions because now they can bring moisture, for example, from Atlantic Ocean and here from Pacific Ocean and bring rainfall to these regions. So that is how the Mediterranean climate, it is a winter rainfall climate and it is very important. Most of the times we can find out or we can crack the question of UPSC related with world climatic zones using this. So winter rainfall. So whenever you are going to see maximum rainfall or most of the rainfall in the winters, it is going to be a Mediterranean climate. So two things we have to observe. First is the warm summers. So it is not actually hot summers, it is warm summers and cool winters, and it is not cold winter. So it is not extreme climate here, and we are going to experience more rainfall in winters. There may be some rainfall in the summers as well, but maximum of the rainfall would be concentrated in the winter seasons. So this is a very important part which we have to remember for the Mediterranean climate. So this Mediterranean climate, we also see the prominence of local winds. If we see the topography of this complete region, the Mediterranean region, we have Sahara Desert here, right? In Africa, we are having Sahara Desert. So this is the Sahara Desert. Sahara Desert. North of them, we have Alps mountain. East, we see the continent interiors, and on the west we see ocean, right? The Atlantic Ocean. Now what effect it will have? It is going to have a great impact, right? It is going to have the different pressure situations, the different climate and different precipitation, and what other thing it would have is with the different pressures it is going to have the local winds. So local winds are very prevalent in this Mediterranean region. Some local winds we can saw is the Sirocco, which is a hot wind actually. Hot wind which blows from the Sahara Desert towards the Mediterranean region. Then we have Mistral, which is a cold wind from the northern part of the Alps. The point number 4 which we require to remember for the Mediterranean is the natural vegetation which is prominent in the Mediterranean part. So we have seen it is a winter. It's a winter rainfall, and summers we are having rainfall, but which is very scanty. So half year dry. Right. So if any region we are going to have half year no precipitation or no rainfall, so the direct implication it would be no luxurious vegetation. This region is also known as the orchard farms of the world. So orchard means the citrus fruits like your orange, limes, grapes. So all these, like 70% of the total world's export for these citrus fruits happened from the Mediterranean region. This place is also known for the olive trees from which we get olive oil, and the oak trees, and also the wine production. The biggest wine production happened in this Mediterranean region. So these are the points which we need to require to remember or to recall in the exam once we will be doing. the UPSC questions. Now, another point is this is actually the transition between hot trade wind deserts to the cool templates. Now, as we are saying now, the tropics were hot. These are the tropics, equator. So these were quite hot because some part of the year it is getting direct rays from the sun. Now, this region between the tropics and the subpolar low pressure belt or the Arctic Circle or Antarctic Circle, tropics were very hot, and now this region would actually represent a transition from actually the hot tropics to cool templates. So it's a transition actually between the hot trade wind deserts to the cool templates. We have seen this warm and dry summers while mild wet winters. So be careful here now if you're going to get some graph in UPSC exam and which it will show like rainfall throughout the year and some rainfall in the summer months as well, but more rainfall in winters. If you're going to see that characteristics, immediately you have to point out like it's a Mediterranean type of climate. And the prominence of the local winds, interesting topography of the Mediterranean Sea, we have already seen this. So the Mediterranean form of climate, it's important for UPSC. Now let's move ahead to the region 2 of this warm temperate region between 30 to 45 degree north and south, and which is the continental, temperate continental, the warm temperate continental, which is also known as the steppe region. As we have said earlier, like we started from the western margin of the continents, now the interior of the continents, and then it will be the eastern margins of the continent. Let's first mark these regions, the temperate, warm temperate continental regions. So first, starting with the America, it is the part of America. It is prairies. This is the Eurasia part. Known as steppes. Coming to the southern hemisphere, starting from South America, we have Pampas in Argentina, Africa, we get Victoria, and in Australia known as Downs. Now these regions, what we have marked now, these are interior of the continents in the northern hemisphere, and in southern hemisphere we see because the continents are not actually much wide, so they are on the coast, right? They are near the seas, so southern hemisphere, and this is the northern hemisphere. These are the grasslands, okay? These are the temperate grasslands. So the tropical grasslands, what we have seen with the savanna, were actually not the actual grasslands because they were present with the trees. Now here with the temperate continents, we say it is the temperate grasslands because practically there are no trees present there. Okay, so whatever regions we have marked here on the map, world map, these are the regions of grasslands. Starting from the America, the North America, famously known as the prairies, then the steppes in the Eurasia, southern hemisphere it becomes it is Pampas, Pretoria, and the Downs in Australia. Now let us understand first thing which should come in our mind, okay, when we are saying it is the interior of continent. So when it is interior to the continent, what it means is they are far from the sea. So if they're far from the sea, they are going to have an extreme temperature difference between summers and the winters. So this is the first thing. Uh, let's go point by point now. The point one, it is the grasslands of the north Northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. As we have discussed, northern hemisphere we see these grasslands are far from the ocean, any ocean influence, but the southern hemisphere, starting from Pampas, Pretoria and Downs, they are quite near to the oceans, right? And when they are near to the oceans, they are not going to have an extreme temperature difference between the summers and the winters. So again, it's marine versus continentality. Northern hemisphere, they're going to have temperature difference extreme temperature difference between the summers and the winters. Southern hemisphere, mild difference between the summers and the winters. And definitely it is going to lead in the difference in precipitation. In the interior of the continents, in the northern hemisphere, okay, in northern hemisphere, in prairies and the steppes, you are going to have light precipitation, and that has to be in the summer month, okay, when there would be intense heating, summer month. So unlike in Mediterranean region, where we have the winter rainfall, and how to remember this winter rainfall with the Mediterranean is, from Mediterranean we get medicine, okay, Mediterranean we get medicines, and when you need medicines more in the winters, okay, so because winters is very cool or very cold, so you get fever, you get cough, so a lot of medicines are required in the winter months. So that is how you can remember now the Mediterranean region, and you can link it with the winters, okay, the rainfall in winters, and no rainfall in the, or very less rainfall in the summers. So light precipitation in summers. Similarly, for the southern hemisphere, it is closer to the sea, it is going to have good rainfall, but that will also be in the case of summers. Another thing what we can see with the southern hemisphere grasslands, it is the passing of the warm ocean current. Okay, the passing of the warm ocean current. This is New Zealand, and this is Canterbury grassland. Canterbury grassland, okay, New Zealand. So we also see the passing of the warm air currents through these grasslands actually. So the effect of warm grasslands, it would again be rainfall in these areas. So that is what actually we need to require about the continental interiors in warm temperate zone, which are also known as the grasslands, the temperate grasslands or steppes. The steppes, the local name in Euro-Asia grasslands. Point number two, we have to understand the local wind fog or Chinook in prairies. So this is a local wind which flows in the prairies, and it is a warm wind prairies in prairies, right? Point B, natural vegetations. It's a grassland. We have said it's treeless, so it is different from the savanna in the way where savanna were having the grass with short trees, and for the grasslands they are without trees. They have different heights of grass, but they are practically actually treeless. So different between grasses and trees, we can actually logically say trees require more moisture for growth, but for grasses this is not the condition. So grasses are the one which actually can sustain some droughts as well. So that is why they are more prominent in these regions where the precipitation is not so much high. So once you have grasses, then you can directly link it is the land of grazing animals. So we are going to have a lot of grazing animals with on those grasses, and this is the part actually with the prairies in the America and the steppes. These are now the granaries of the world. So the greatest wheat exporters. So here these regions we see extensive mechanized wheat and maize cultivation. So these regions, they are the greatest wheat exporters. Now coming to the third region, which is the warm temperate eastern margin. Okay, starting from the western margin, which was the Mediterranean region, the interiors of the continent, which are the steppes, okay, or the grasslands, the temperate grasslands. Now the eastern margin, which is the China. Let's mark this region, the warm temperate eastern margin, also known as the China type. So this region, basically, it's the eastern part of the China, also covering the southern Japan. Right, so that is how it gets its name as the eastern margin or the China type. In the North America, we see it's getting best developed on the Eastern America, which is bordering the Gulf of Mexico. Then in the Southern America, we see the regions along the Uruguay and the Paraguay, the eastern, southeastern tip of Africa. Then we have the eastern, southeastern again tip of Australia, Sydney. Right. So we will be actually these all regions, they have some differences in their climate. Almost they have the same climate, but this region we call as the China type climate. This region we call as a Gulf type of climate, and others we call as the Natal type of climate. For us, the most important is the China type climate, which is also the temperate monsoon type of climate. So, this climate, the first thing we have to remember is the more rainfall than the Mediterranean region. Then Mediterranean region. Although now the rainfall is well uniform, distributed throughout the year, but again we will see the maximum rainfall in the summers. Okay, maximum rainfalls in the summers. So warm. So here's a mistake actually. So warm, dry summers. It cannot be warm, dry summers. Okay, and cool, little precipitation winters in winter. So this is also not right. We can easily find out this has to be case with the Mediterranean climate, where you get rainfalls in the winters and no rainfall in the summers. So actually, it is warm, moist summers and cool, little precipitation in winters as well. This is a point number one for the China type climates. Point number two, it is the well distributed rainfall throughout the year. This thing we have already discussed, but it has to be maximum in summers. As we have seen, there are further three divisions in this climate type: the China type, the Gulf type, and then Natal type. The China type, where the monsoonal tendency is more pronounced, while the Gulf type monsoon tendencies are not so much pronounced, right? And Natal type, we don't see any monsoon tendencies. Monsoons simply means the complete reversal of winds with a change in season, like what we see in India. So China type, this region, what we have seen, this is the eastern part of China. Uh, Complete monsoonal climate, extreme cold in winters because of cold offshore winds from the continental lands. Right? So this region, what we can see here is with the intense heating of this part, the first it would be the monsoons, okay, and then when it would be very cold, it is going to be offshore winds which are going to be very cold. So extreme cold in winters because of the cold offshore winds from the continental land. Extreme annual temperature range. Now obviously it is going to be have an extreme annual temperature range because of the extreme cold winds which they are getting from the interior of the continents. Occurrence of typhoons that originates in the Pacific Ocean. So typhoons, what we have discussed, which happened in the South China Sea or the Pacific Ocean, they actually affect most this particular area and also the southern Japan. Gulf type, what we have seen with the the North America part, the bordering of Gulf of Mexico. So less established monsoon characteristics, that is reversal of winds, very less annual range of temperature, no distant dry period with again summer maximum. Natal type in the southern hemisphere, these all regions, they're going to have marine influence. Rainfall well distributed throughout the year, no dry season, a small temperature range, and some local winds, which we can again show here some of the local winds. Here in the South America, a local wind known as Pampero. In Africa, we get Berg wind. In Australia, we get southerly buster. Buster. Right? So some of the local winds which we need to remember for these margins. So the summary of the China type, first thing is rainfall is there throughout the year with summer maximum. Right. First is the China region, which is actually complete monsoonal region, and it gets a lot of cold winds from inside the continent. So there is extreme difference in the temperatures of summers and winters. Then it was the Gulf. Again, you get rainfall throughout the year, but less difference in temperature. The southern part, the southern eastern margins of the continents, again rainfall throughout the year, but less difference in temperature. This question have been asked about the China type of climate once when they gave this different precipitations in the month and different temperatures in the month, which we will see at the end of this chapter, the last year questions for this. Let's talk about the natural vegetation of these features. So heavier rainfall than the western margins and the continent interiors. The first point, when we going to talk about the vegetation, which thing actually relate with the vegetation? So it is the precipitation. The first thing is the rainfall. So without rainfall, there will be no vegetation. So these margins, as we have already seen, they get more rainfall than their counterpart of the western margins, which were facing the problems because of the shift of the westerly winds when the sun comes over the Tropic of Cancer. So the result now is a good vegetation, a luxuriant vegetation. So for US Gulf climate regions, corn, cotton and tobacco are the major crops which are exported. So this is another point what we can remember. It has never been asked, but still we can remember corn, cotton and tobacco. Some of the which requires actually good precipitation and the frost-free summer. So for them, actually, this U.S. Gulf climate suits, and they are found in a good number: the corn, cotton, and tobacco. And once we are going to do the agriculture part in detail, that time we will see the spatial requests or spatial requirements for each crop, the climate, the soil, the precipitation, the winters or the summers. Presently, we have covered these things under the mnemonics only, but once we are going to cover the agriculture part in detail, it's going to be much easier for you to identify then which crops actually will grow well in which climate. Now let's move ahead, okay, to 45 degrees north and south. Okay, 45 degrees to 65 degrees north and south, and this is we are going to call as a cool temperate zone. So starting from the warm temperate zone, okay, now we are moving to the cool temperate zone. So the first difference which we will immediately notice is the fall in temperature. Okay, the first thing, it has to be cooler than the warm, right? The warm temperate zone, it has to be cooler, right? This particular latitude. Same principle here also we are going to follow the western margin of the continents, the interior of the continents, and the eastern margin of the continents. So let's start with the region one, which is the cool temperate western margin, and which is also known as the British type, because this type of climate we find mostly around the Britain or the London, right? The Britain, London, UK. This is Norway and Sweden. Same type of climate we found in a stretch here in America as well, where these are the Rockies, and these Rockies actually block these westerlies wind here and gives a lot of rainfall in this type of place, which is British Columbia. British Columbia, the southern part of Chile, and the most of New Zealand. So these are the eastern margins of, the western margins of the continent. Now, first thing which we will observe is here these belts. Okay, these are the direct belts for westerlies. So westerlies is going to brought a lot of rainfall throughout the year for these regions. So under the influence of westerlies throughout the year, so what it means, what it implies, it will be the rainfall throughout the year. So another thing what we can observe here is these regions have lot of marine influence, and the marine influence will directly lead to the mild summers and mild winters. So rainfall throughout the year, the constant rainfall throughout the year, and the oceanic influence, which means the less difference between the summers and the winters temperature. So these are the two things what we need to remember about these particular region. First thing is it is in direct reach of the westerlies, which is going to bring a lot of rainfall to these regions. Lot of rainfall throughout the year. They are closer to the sea. So they are closer to the sea. What it means is it is going to have a marine environment, and marine environment, it would directly refer to the less difference in temperature between winters and summers. From the western margins of the continent, now we are going to move to the interior of the continents, like what we did for the warm temperate region. For the cool temperate region, again we are going to see the interior of the continents. And the interesting thing here is this interior of the continents, it is present only in the northern hemisphere. This is also known as the Siberian climate. So this whole interior of the continent for this latitude between the 45 degree to 65 degree north. In the southern hemisphere, it is quite obvious it cannot be present because there is no highlands in the interior of the continents. So the first thing is interior of the continents. The immediate thing which we should derive the conclusion is they are going to have an extreme difference, okay, or extreme winters. Now it is much higher in altitude, so that would mean a very, very cold temperature in these regions. Let's move ahead now. Experienced only in the northern hemisphere and absent in the southern hemisphere because of the narrowness of the continents in high altitudes. We have already seen that. Famous for evergreen coniferous forest. This is very important. Now, this is the area where we find evergreen coniferous forests. Coniferous forests are the forests or the trees where they have the cone shape, and these are the evergreen forests. They are not the deciduous which shed their leaf in the summers, and these coniferous forests are normally found in the higher altitudes. So famous for evergreen coniferous forests, and taiga is the name of this evergreen coniferous forest in Russia. So as we have said, very cold winters and brief cool summers. So very, very cold winters. And now as this is the interior of continent, so precipitation also we can expect light. But now this is distributed uniformly throughout the year because of two things. The first thing is in winters we are going to have snow. Winters snow. And second thing is, again, it's the interior of continent, so we are going to get some conventional rainfall because of the high and low pressure. So we are going to have summer rainfalls. Summer rainfall. So rainfall throughout the year, but again it has to be summer maximum. And very, very cold winters. So mild annual precipitation. Something about coniferous forests. These are the great source of softwoods. and these are moderately dense, cannot survive on steep slopes. Now, if we want to arrange these different forests, whatever we have studied, first were the rainforest, okay, tropical rainforest. So those were the very dense forest, very dense, very dense, okay. After that, we studied the deciduous forest. Then we are studying now evergreen coniferous forest, and then we studied the savanna grasslands and then the temperate grasslands. So that is actually the sequence of the density or the denseness of these forests. Now moving to the third region, which is the cool temperate eastern margin. Okay, starting from the western margin, it was the Britain. Okay, the British type of climate. Now moving to the eastern margin of the climate, which is Saint Laurent climate, also we call as. So this is found only in the two parts of the world. The first one is the China, including Korea and the northern Japan, and the northeastern part of United States. Now this climate, it actually forms a transition, sort of transition between the western margins, which had the complete marine environment, to the continental, which has the complete continental characteristics. Now it forms a transition between them. So it has cold, dry winters, very cold winters, but warm, wet summers. So though we can see in the USA, in this part of USA, we get rainfall throughout the year, but this peaking China, it's going to have rainfall only in summers. Another important thing is this is actually a very famous region for the fishing. Let us see why it is so. Here we have a liberator current, ocean current, which is a cold ocean current, and here we get Gulf of a stream, which is a warm ocean current. Now the mixing of these cold and warm ocean current, it is a place known as Newfoundland. Newfoundland. So when mixing of this cold current and the warm current happens, it produces a lot of fog and mist, and it also is a very important center for fishing. And same thing happens in the area around Japan, where the warm ocean current always you have to show it from the equator to the polar region. Kuroshio meets with a cold ocean current, Oyashio. So again, this region becomes very important for the fishing. So this region, the continental shelves would be having a lot of plankton. So that actually is the food of the fishes and other the animal species. So we find a lot of fishing activities taking place in this region, particularly with Japan and Newfoundland in Canada. So that is actually what we need to remember about the eastern margin or the Saint Laurent region. So again here China, we said it's more of round of the summer rainfall, while in the American part this is actually well distributed rainfall throughout the year. Let us quickly now see the different questions which have been asked in UPSC from this particular topic of the world climatic zones. Remember to follow the logic, like if we have seen the difference between the marine and the continental climate, different in the temperature ranges, different in the precipitation, the equatorial climate, then moving ahead tropics going to be hotter than the subpolar and then the polar regions. So let's quickly see the important questions which have been asked in UPSC. And after this, what we finish with the northern type of climate, the eastern margin of the cool temperate region. Above that, it is going to be polar region, and which is having the tundra vegetation. So nothing more than that is important for the tundra region for the present studies. Let's see now question which has been asked in UPSC. This is IAS 2012. They have asked a question about the characteristics of savanna region. The option they gave, first option it was rainfall throughout the year. Second option was rainfall in winters only. In winters only. Third, it was short dry season. And the fourth option, it was a definite dry and wet season. Now this is very straightforward for us. Savanna region, we know we studied after a tropical monsoon region, and it is actually the transition between the desert and the tropical monsoon. So it cannot have rainfall throughout the year. Rainfall in winters we have only seen in the case of Mediterranean region. So this is also wrong. Short dry season. So what it is trying to say is it is going to have more rainfall throughout the year. So that is also wrong. Actually, savanna region we have studied, it is having a definite dry and wet season, so it is getting precipitation in the summers, and that precipitation also is quite less than the monsoonal, tropical monsoonal regions, and the dry season in winters. So the answer would be 4, and this is very easy. Let's see the another question. This has been asked in IAS 2011, right? So what they are asking is, what could be the main reason for the formation of African or Eurasian desert belt? Okay, we have studied the desert belt in the tropical, hot tropical trade wind region. So first thing is, they are giving two statements for this, the formation of desert belts. The first statement is it is subtropical high pressure belt. Second, it is under the influence of warm ocean current. Subtropical high pressure belt, yes, this is right, because this high pressure actually is will lead to the descending of air, so less suitable for the rainfall. This is right, high pressure belt. Now warm ocean current. If you remember, when we talked about the Atacama Desert, we talked about the Peruvian current, which is a cold ocean current. So this cold ocean current, what it is doing is the moisture bearing winds which are coming from the ocean, somehow this cold current actually is condensing all the moisture of these winds. So that is how the cold ocean currents actually determine the formation of desert belts on the western coast of the continent. So this is the wrong statement. So the correct statement was 1. So this was again a very straightforward question for the UPSC standard. So you can see the questions which are asked in UPSC are not really very difficult. Another question which was asked in same year 2011. They asked if a tropical rainforest is removed and it does not regenerate quickly as compared to the tropical deciduous forest. This is because, right? So if we are going to cut the tropical rainforest, it is not going to regenerate as fast as the tropical deciduous forest do. So what is the reason for that? So tropical rainforest. So we studied that the tropical rainforest, these are the areas of heavy rains. And if you're going to cut down the rainforest, whatever humus or whatever leaves or what is the organic material which has to act as a nutrients for the soil, now it is going to be washed away for the with the continuous downpour. So that is how the soil is nutrientless. So this is the reason for that. So that was the first option. The soil of rainforest is deficient in nutrients. So it was a very straightforward question again. Let's go to the next question, which was asked in 2010. So question IAS 2010. In this, they are asking which of the geographical region has the following distinct characteristics. Okay, so the first characteristic they are saying warm and dry climate. Warm and dry climate. Remember warm. Okay, it is not hot. The second is mild and wet winters. Now, once you hear wet winters, okay, and dry climate, otherwise, things should be clear to you now. Third one is oak trees. So it is going to define which region with wet winters. It is has to be Mediterranean climate. So that was the answer. That was the option 1. So again a straightforward question. Again a straightforward question. Let's go ahead and see another question which was asked in the same year 2010. This question they have given the average temperature for each month. So if we say like average temperature, it is maximum is 31 degrees centigrade and the minimum, the maximum temperature for the year, and the minimum temperature is 20 degrees centigrade. This is the minimum temperature. And now this area is having rainfall above 5 centimeters in all the months, and heavy rainfall in middle of the months where they are getting approximately 15 centimeters also. Now they are saying this region, okay, which is having this characteristics is suitable for which type of forest. The first is they are given coniferous forest. The second they have given the subtropical forest. Then the temperate forest, or it is the rainforest, tropical rainforest. Now answer is very straightforward here. We can see when it is 31 degrees centigrade to 20 degrees centigrade, this area has to be near the ocean because of less difference in temperatures and rainfall, and that too heavy rainfall in all of the months. It has to be the equatorial region. It has to be equatorial region, and this equatorial region is actually suited for the rainforest. So again a very straightforward question. We can directly mark just seeing the rainfall distribution in all of the months where it is the heavy rainfall, and the temperature difference between the maximum and the minimum, that is summers and winters, is very less. Let us see another question which was asked in IAS 2003, where they're giving an assertion which they are saying the areas which are lying between 5 degrees to 8 degrees, okay, from altitude on either side of equator receives rainfall throughout the year. Okay, this is a reason assertion, and the reason is the high temperature and high humidity cause conventional rainfall to fall mostly in the afternoons near the equator, right? So assertion is around equator it's rain throughout the year, and the reason they are saying is because of the high temperature and high humidity, conventional rain falls almost every day. So both are correct. Yes, assertion is also correct. It's a area where you get rainfall throughout the year, and the reason is also correct. Because of the high temperature and high humidity, it is going to rain every day. Let us see another question now. Year 2012. Year 2002. I'm sorry. IAS 2002. They have given four statements and they have asked us to find which one is right. The first one is in equatorial regions, okay, equatorial regions, there are four seasons, distinct seasons. This is the statement number one. Statement number two, Mediterranean region, more rainfall in summer. Statement number three, China type, rainfall throughout year. The fourth is in tropical highlands exhibit vertical zonation of different climates. So what it means is climate changes with highlands. Now we can see how much easy it is. Equatorial regions, four seasons, not possible, right? Summers, winters, they don't have. They have very equitable temperature throughout the year. So first one is wrong. Mediterranean region, more rainfall in summers, totally wrong. China type, rainfall throughout the year, this is right. Okay. China type, again, how you can remember this is China's, what is famous for China's, like China made toys which come very cheap. So toys, you have kept your toys outside your home in the rain, okay, and that is in the rain throughout the year. So that is how you can relate it. So China type rainfall throughout the year and climate changes with highlands, this is very obvious. The lowland and the highland, we are going to have change in climate. So this is right. So 3 and 4 are right. Again, a very straightforward question and nothing can be more easy than this. Let us see another question now. This question was asked in 2001 IAS. 2001 IAS 2001. In this they have given a temperature range for each month. So the lowest temperature we see in January. January is having the lowest temperature of 9.4 degrees centigrade, and the highest temperature is in the month of October or September. It is 15.6 degrees centigrade. So we can see it is mild temperature. So it has something to do with the temperate regions. This cannot be the case in tropics. And rainfall, if we see the highest rainfall is happening in the month of January, again 12.2 centimeters. And the lowest rainfall in June with 0.3 centimeters. And December is having rainfall of 11.7 centimeters. Again, we can see rainfall in winters. Okay, rainfall in winters, maximum rainfall in winters, and the mild temperature. Answer is very straight. It is Mediterranean region. It is the Mediterranean climate. So hardly 30 seconds job for us to solve this question. Another question now. IAS 1999. Again, they have given different temperatures for the month, with the lowest temperature being in January 6.7 degrees centigrade. 6.7 degrees centigrade. 6.7 degrees centigrade. And the highest temperature is again 15 degrees centigrade in the month of August, and the rainfall again is, it is concentrated in whole of the year, but maximum rainfall in the winters. Again, we are going to mark it as a Mediterranean climate. So that is how now things are very easy for us for this particular. Just focus on the typical features of that climate zone, and we will be able to solve most of the questions related with this. And it is a very frequently asked question also in UPSC. So thanks for tuning in. We are finishing this lecture here itself. Thank you.